So hello everyone and welcome to this video. Sorry I wasn't able to upload for over 9 months now. That's because I had many commitments and also the world of GeoGuessr was going downhill for most of that time until really recently when the competitive phase of it started to grow. And I'm back with one of the hardest modes on the game, one that I held the world record on in A Diverse World back in 2021. And I got that insane score of 24,612 and it lasted for a year until Zigzag beat it. Congrats for that. And this is the 10-second no moving, panning or zooming mode, which I will now try on a community world, which is a map with much more locations, which are handpicked by different members of the community and is much harder than Adaros world. But I'm still hoping to get a good score, somewhere like over 24.4 would be great and 24.5k would be even better. So let's see how I do. So we started off with some urban Netherlands here. We have a front yellow plate and the landscape that looks very urban. I went in the center and I should have gone a city, which in this case was Rotterdam. Here it's black soil, really flat, and we have that antenna and also black back of the sign, so it's probably Romania, I guess, in the south because it's really flat. This is snow coverage Gen 2. We have some French shutters in the background. By how hilly it is, I just went close to the Alps, but not in the Alps themselves, and it was a pretty good score there. I still had a good chance. Here we have yellow lines and like landscape that looked like Eastern Ecuador with those trees there that looked very Amazonian palms, and we got the roads. And now we had a chance to get at least 24.4. But however, here I struggled. We had a yellow plate, some African architecture and people, and it looked really much like Ghana, but it took me a while to realize it. I just clicked Kumasi, but I should have guessed more north with more time because it was very open and not lush enough. But 23.863 points is a good score to start with. Let's move on to the next game. So in this game, we started with a Puerto Rico highway. We have no front license plate and we have the antenna. So it should be somewhere in one of the east-west roads and I got the right one. It was close to the capital. Now this one looked like Canada with that car antenna and the snow coverage and the rocks made me think Western Ontario and the 17 has a lot of snow coverage, so I guess there. And it was there although the score wasn't that great. Here we have a yellow outer line and some Chinese characters and a sign that was one of the green signs of Taiwan. I don't know why I guessed west because it was really lush. I should have guessed more east. Here we have a yellow plate, some Israeli curbs, some Hebrew to the right too, so it should be just in the middle there. And it was a bit more south, but close to Tel Aviv nonetheless. Here we have a Bulgarian flag, and also it's really flat, so I thought northern, and I just guessed Pleven. It was just a small town close to the Danube, and we finally broke 24k with that score, which I'm really pleased of, although I could have done better in Taiwan. In this third game, we started off with what looked like Indonesia. We had some Javanese roofs and it was pretty dry. Should be more towards the east of Java, and it was indeed East Java. And 4.8k is good there. This one was a repeat from before, I have to acknowledge that, and it was in Podgorica. I got it because it was really distinct. Now this one we had Malaysian nights, we had oil palms, so it shouldn't be too north and it was completely flat. I just guessed close to the capital. Maybe I should have guessed a bit more south, but it was still close to the capital, so it wasn't a big problem. And now I had a good chance of getting 24.4 at least. This is looked like Andorra with that architecture and the autumn coverage, so that should be a very good location. And we still had a chance to break 24.5 at this point. Now here, this was weird. I first thought that we had coast to the west and it reminded me a lot of like Coquimbo area. But unfortunately, it was Greece. This is just to show that this mode is really hard and sometimes you fail and you just have to try again and grind all the time. We did have some Greek houses there, but I didn't. pay too much attention to them, unfortunately. Also some Mediterranean landscape, but you can find that in Chile too. That's not something that I could have found out in such a small period of time. But we still have some other opportunities to get the score we want. So let's move on to the next game. The first round was in Bermuda because we had that blur of the car and also the white roofs which are distinct of this island. Now we continue on with another car blur, but this time with these spines and this single yellow line. It should be in Guatemala, and it was closer to the city. Maybe I should have guessed there, although it's still a really good score. Moving on to round three, we have some cobblestone roads with the outer dashed lines and some Dutch architecture. Shouldn't be too west because of the corner, and yeah, it was more south, but we still had like dropped less than 400 points, I think, at this point. Moving on to the fourth round, we had the green grass that you can see in northern Peru and also really dry and open, and we had some acacia trees in the background, so I guess Piura, it was just north of it. This was an insane score going on to round five. And then we got another road that looked like Peru, but this time it was much higher up in the Altiplano. I thought it was more south because it looked really like the Titicaca area, although much hillier. So I guess Cusco, but it was a bit more west, which is unfortunate because Peru is a big country, so I dropped a lot of points there, and I couldn't get to 24K, unfortunately, but it was still a really good game. Taking into consideration the locations we had, so I still had to show it in this video. I will now proceed to show the games where I actually managed to break 24.4K, and these were separated by 3 weeks, so this just shows how much you need to put into this to actually get a really good score, but it is worth it at the end because you usually do get a good seed at one point and you can take advantage of it. So we first started with Japan. The roofs were like metal, so it shouldn't be too far south. But I still guessed Nagano because I didn't want to risk going more north, and it was Niigata, so that was the right decision. Here we had the yellow plate, some Southeast Asian characters, which looked a bit loud, a typo or like something similar, so it should be Vientiane without the Google car. Now we had classic Malta stone architecture, so this was a very benevolent seed. The next round was the weakest in this game for me because I thought northern Serbia because of the architecture, but unfortunately it was much more south. Then Alok told me that the house on the left didn't really look Austro-Hungarian, so it should have been closer to Belgrade, and also we had a taxi, meaning that we are in a bigger city there. And this was just an easy Dubai to finish off with the Arabic and the really wide highway, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. And with this seed, we managed to break 24K with a 24,464 score, which is actually insane. So we started with Taiwan. This was very dry. We had Thai script, a typo, but the dryness meant we should be east. I just clicked on Burinam randomly and it was just neighboring Surin, but very close. Now we had Taiwan again. We had a sign for Roy Et, which is another state in the east. And as it was to the east of us, I clicked in the neighboring state, but it was actually there just more west of the city, but that was still very good, over 4900. Here we had some winter coverage, Gen 3, and with that architecture, I thought it could only be Czechia, and the houses look more Germanic, so I went west, and I should have gone even more west because this actually was the round that impacted my score more significantly. And then we moved on to some red soil Africa, and I hoped it wasn't some Kenya close to Lake Victoria, but I clicked Kampala because it would be the best chance of getting a very good score in this round, and it actually was Kampala, which was very satisfying. And moving on to the last round, I still had a chance of breaking 24.5K, and we had an insane round with some Lao, with red and white guardrails, and we had palms and red soil, and that mountain in the back should be Paxe, and it was, and I finally managed to break 24.5K with 24 viral on 46, which is very insane. I don't think it's the world record, but I'm still very proud of the score. So thank you very much for watching. I do have a difficult and irregular schedule coming up, but I will try to upload at least once a month, maybe more if I have time. So subscribe, like, and see you next time. Bye.